Hello and welcome to Musical Miles Podcast. I'm your host, Byron Duffin, along with my co-host, Shanda Duffin. We wanted to take a minute today and introduce you to our latest episode in the podcast. We have decided to interview a young man from Sandy, Utah, by the name of Skylar Geer. Talented young man. We were introduced to him by a mutual friend, and we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to listen to his music prior to going down there. So we jumped on Spotify, and listened to his music. He's got several songs on Spotify as well as YouTube, but we had a chance to listen to his music. What did you think, Shanda?
I thought he was great. He reminds me of Waylon. Next song reminded me of Montgomery Gentry. He just has a great sound, growl. He's great.
He's got a great voice, really unique voice, and he's an independent artist, but he's a singer-songwriter. And we met him where? Where did we end up meeting?
We met him at the Lounge Studios in South Salt Lake, Trevor Price's studio.
It was really a cool experience to get to walk into an actual studio, recording studio, and see how that operates and what goes on behind the scenes. And so we hadn't had that opportunity before, but we met up with Skylar, sat down and listened to his story, his musical journey. Has been involved in the music industry since about 2017, and spent some time in Nashville. Once again, he's a singer-songwriter. He's written a lot of his own work and co-written some stuff, but really talented, and we were excited about it. So we want to make sure that you follow us on all our social media platforms, but make sure you click the subscribe button below here on YouTube. That way you'll be notified of all the new podcasts once they're posted. But where else can you find us on social media?
You'll find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, Musical Miles Podcast.
We also have a new website going to be launched here in the next few days, musicalmilespodcast.com. You can follow us on there, stop by, you'll click directly into the YouTube channel and follow the podcast, as well as photos and storylines and where we're going next and what's happening in our world along our musical journey. We love live music, love music in general, and we want to share that with you. So we look forward to any of your feedback. Make sure you comment on our videos. We welcome all comments. If you know somebody, another artist or a venue that needs to be featured on the podcast, we welcome all comers. We're looking forward to this continuing our musical journey. We have traveled from coast to coast and from Canada to Mexico and Hawaii and everywhere in between. And we've always sought out live music, and we'll continue to do so. And we want to share that with you. So once again, thank you for joining us. Enjoy the podcast with Skylar, and we'll catch you next time. Adios. Hey, welcome to the podcast. This is Musical Miles Podcast. I'm here with our guest today, Mr. Skylar Geer.
Yes, sir.
We are here in Salt Lake City at
the Lounge Studios, Trevor Price, South Salt Lake.
Yeah, great place, great facility. It's really cool in here. This is my first experience in a real live studio, so that's kind of cool. Hey, so Skylar, what we want to know today is just a little bit more about Skylar Geer. And first of all, what is your musical journey? How did you get started in music, and what drives you?
Well, it's just kind of funny. I mean, I've always loved music. I grew up with my father who just loved rock music, all the classics, So that was pretty much all I would listen to, was a lot of old rock.
How old's your dad?
He is 60... I think he's 59, about to be 60.
Okay, so I grew up in about the same era I did, and my partner, Miss Shanda, we're 70s rockers, right?
Yep.
CCR, the Eagles, America.
All that, Bad Company. AC/DC, Pink Floyd, Jethro Tull.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, all that stuff. So I love all that stuff for sure. My mom isn't like a music schnob, I guess. She doesn't totally dive in. You couldn't ask her favorite band. She just knows songs. She doesn't know necessarily the bands or the artists. So just mainly rock influence, and that's from my uncle as well. But my aunt, my sister, they always listened to country music. And so I kind of got maybe more into that in my teenage years. just
Sure.
hanging out with my aunt or my sister. So I credit them for kind of playing that
So
music.
what
that
would have
kinda
been
got me
your
into
first
it.
live concert that you ever went to that you remember?
Well, my dad doesn't like crowds, so there wasn't a whole lot of concerts growing up until I decided I wanted to go. First I can even remember would probably be like Hollywood Undead, Atreyu. I mean, like metal bands. These are metal bands.
Right.
They played out at the Saltaire,
Okay.
out there on the way to Tooele.
Mm-hmm.
Big palace out there.
Yeah, I've been there actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to do a lot of music events there. It was really cool and secluded. That's the first one I can recall. I was probably 18 or 19.
Okay.
And I took my younger cousin. But yeah, I mean, my teenage years were all over the place. I started to like country, but at the same time, all my friends were really getting into the heavy metal or the screamo kind of punk rock bands.
Right.
And so I got really into that. And, you know, most of my family had no interest in any of that.
Sure.
So that was just kind of my world. And I'll still listen to that stuff, like going to the gym or whatever. But I don't listen as often anymore. And actually, in high school, I was in a band.
Okay.
And we kind of did that sound, kind of that punk rock and screamo sound.
Okay.
And I couldn't really play the guitar at that point.
Sure.
So I was the screamer.
Okay.
And I could scream. I was pretty good. I had a little pig growl and all that. I can't do it as well anymore. Like I can do it in like a 30-second spurt, but now that I've developed an actual singing voice, it's just too hard to do.
Sure.
The scream
Sure.
stuff.
So who inspired you then? I mean, your dad loved music and classic rock, but who really inspired you locally?
Well, as far as locally, I mean, there wasn't a whole lot. I don't feel like Utah had a ton of local talent, but there was a few guys that I would listen to that were kind of almost alternative punk, even a little folk, that were local. A band called 3% Hero, another kid named Allred. It was John Allred, but he just went by Allred.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of had a softer sound that I really enjoyed, and I went to a few of their concerts when I was in high school. So I think when I first really started to get interested in the guitar, because I had one when I was maybe 14 or 15 that my dad had got me, but I just wasn't committed to really playing it.
I can relate.
But going to shows and watching these guys, and it was like, okay, that's kind of fun. I would like to do that. So I started to kind of pick it up maybe around 16, 17. But I was also in sports. I mean, I played sports from 8 till 17, so that was probably why I didn't totally
Sure.
buy into the music thing, because I was like, yeah, I'm going to be an athlete. I just
Sure.
thought, sure, I'm going to be baseball, basketball, football, whatever. But then I realized, you know, around 15, 16, everybody was growing and I wasn't.
Sure.
I'm like, well,
Well, it's funny
Now
that you
we risk
mentioned that
injury.
because Morgan Wallen was a baseball player,
yes.
and his first choice in life would have been to be a baseball player.
Right.
Second choice was music, and look what it's done.
Right. There's
in
a
his life.
few folks with that
Yeah.
story.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So, well, cool. So, what about professionally? Who inspired you once you got really started? You decided you wanted to take this path. Who inspired you?
sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people. Like I said, I played baseball, basketball, football till about 17. And then when I stepped away, I really needed that outlet. I needed something to kind of get my juices flowing. And I just decided, all right, I'm going to learn the guitar. And I had joined that band that I mentioned, but I couldn't play guitar, but just kind of watching them trying to learn. After about a year, they ended up kicking me out because they just said I didn't have enough to bring to the table. Like I didn't play guitar and I didn't sing. I was just a screamer. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go. That kind of motivated me. I'm going to go learn how to play the guitar. And so I just kind of learned some things. My dad plays guitar a little bit, so he's taught me a few things along the way. But a lot of it was just through YouTube, which kind of came out around the time I had graduated high school in 2008. So just learning that, and I kind of really enjoyed that kind of softer folk, almost even beachy sound, like a Jack Johnson or
Okay.
a Donovan Frankenreiter. John Allred was a local guy that I mentioned. So I started to kind of learn the guitar and learning some Jack Johnson songs and kind of singing like that in a softer tone, just trying to figure out what my voice was. And I could do it pretty decently, I felt, but it really hurt my vocal cords to sing that way. Like, I felt like, okay, I'm forcing it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I still did it for a little while, and then I ended up having a friend that played piano very well, and he said, hey, I make beats, and I've always kind of been a funny guy and make funny songs and rap a little bit. I've always enjoyed some hip-hop and rap music as well. He's like, well, I make beats, maybe we could get together and collab and make something. And so he ended up making me a few beats. I mean, this was like 2009, 2010. And we ended up putting together like 2 or 3 full rap hip-hop albums.
Oh, wow.
Where I would, rap like the verses, but then I would sing on the choruses.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was singing the choruses, it was always that softer tone, almost an R&B feel. And I still have some of those recordings. They're funny to go back and listen to sometimes. Some of them aren't bad. I mean, he was very talented on the keys, so
sure,
he knew what he was doing. But around that point, I'm just like, well, I've always liked country, and I just kept learning the guitar more and more. Got a little bit better at the guitar and learned a few country songs, started posting a few on YouTube, and a few did really well. And it just kind of grew from there. I had a friend that started dating a girl, and she lived in Riverton, Utah, and they had a coffee shop out there called The Coffee Shop, and they would do these open mic nights on Friday nights. She's like, you really should come out and check it out. And so we went a few times, and then I ended up signing up, and you would get up there. You get like 3 songs they'd give you, because they'd probably have 10 or so people play each night. And I just started going from there. Like, I'd play 3 songs on my guitar, and I did that for probably about 1.5 years. And then there was another coffee house over in West Jordan, Utah, that I would play at on Saturday nights that did open mics. And just started learning more and more about country music, and it just felt like Nashville was the place to be. And so I went out there and visited in 2013 and played some open mics out there. Really had a good time, enjoyed it. Came home, told my parents, all right, I'm moving to Nashville. I'm 23 years old. They're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm going. I'm moving next week. And they're like, no, like, let's sit down and plan it out. And I had kind of worked on and off for my uncle's construction company, Maddox Construction, based out of West Jordan, Utah, which my younger cousin runs now. But I saved up a little bit. They basically doubled what I had saved and then helped me move out there. U-Haul, I drove my Jeep, and they stayed with me for like a week. And
so you made the move to Nashville. Your parents, you sat down, planned it out, had a plan.
Yeah, it was 2015. I felt like I had enough money to at least get us by. We went out there, took a few days, found an apartment, which was like $1,000, which is hilarious now because you're not finding that rent almost anywhere.
Anywhere, right?
But at the time, it was like, whoa, that's a lot. You're going to blow through your savings really quick. So we got to find a job. Found a job at Staples, which wasn't much. It was like $8 an hour. I ended up working my way to $10 an hour. I became a assistant manager there.
Okay.
But it was enough. I made about $1,000 a month. It was barely enough to cover that, and then the food or anything else I needed was just credit cards. And so 2 years of that, basically just going and playing open mics, getting my foot in the door. I mean, I didn't know anybody. I was 24 years old. I had just turned, and just playing anywhere I could, meeting other songwriters and performers. And after about 1.5 years at Staples, I moved over to FedEx, which was terrible hours, like 2 a.m. to about 9 a.m. So really rough, especially if I was playing a show until, 11, midnight, the previous night. But it just kind of was what it was. And I made enough money there, $14 an hour, to kind of extend my stay a little bit. But I felt like, went into a lot of debt with the credit cards, and I felt like I made enough connections as far as writers and performers and other musicians. And I'm like, all right, well, I can go home and just do this.
Right.
And so I came home and
Well, I wonder, I've often wondered, we've been to Nashville one time. Shanda and I went out a couple of years ago, and every other person we met there was a singer-songwriter, right? But
Yeah.
they're all struggling. Most of them are, driving Uber or
Oh,
working
yeah.
at FedEx or Staples or somewhere
Sure.
Have
Have to,
so
yeah.
is Nashville a place where dreams go to die? Music dreams go to die, or some of them come true?
But yes, maybe like 2% come true.
Lainey
in
Wilson
Nashville.
says she spent
Yeah.
13 years before her
Yeah.
dream.
And that's
actually
what's
came
funny
true.
is I knew of her when I was there. I mean, I just knew her as the singer that lived in her camper.
Yeah. Lived in her camper, and really, I mean, she had started to make some inroads, but really the thing that kind of pushed her was Yellowstone.
Yeah.
The exposure she got on the TV show Yellowstone, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But before we do, so let's go back to Nashville and talk a little bit about your first EP. You did an album.
Sure.
Out there, and you kind of walk me through that process and some of the songs, because we've listened to your album, and really some of those songs are really cool and really resonated with Shanda and I both. So
Sure, yeah. Well, I appreciate you listening. Yeah, I mean, 2015, I'm just trying to figure it all out. I found this demo studio. I think it was called the 515, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, you just pay a set rate, come in, musicians are all there, and they just listen to your demo tape, and they build the song for you. I mean, I didn't have a whole lot of creative control. They just kind of build it for you. So I did one song, Funny How Love, which I wrote about, my girlfriend at the time. She's now my wife. And I thought it turned out pretty well. And then from there, I did another song called London, which a girl in my wife's family had diabetes and passed away at a young age. And so the family had kind of asked me if I could create a song for her, and they ended up paying for it. So I had those two songs. And then, I mean, it's very expensive to do songs, obviously. So I wasn't making a whole lot of money.
right.
And so it was a long process, but around 2017, I had only had those two songs to this point. I had saved up enough that I went to another studio, and he was going to do 6 songs for me for like $3,000. I mean, it was a pretty good rate. And so we ended up doing 6 more songs, and then I just slapped on the other 2 that I already had, and it's like, all right, well, there's 8 songs, and they turned out pretty good, I think. I mean, I think those 2 that we mentioned, Funny How Love and London, are the best of the 2, of the 8, but those 2 are the best, in my opinion. But
I'll tell you one that I loved, and Shanda and I listened
Sure.
to it again today, was on the way here, is Nunya. I love that
Oh,
because it's
yeah.
about class
Nunya.
reunion, right?
yeah.
So you wrote that song, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so a friend and I wrote that, Carrie Ann Jean. I think she's just announced that she's pregnant with her second child. So
Oh, congratulations.
yeah, congrats to her. But yeah, we just sat down one day and we're like, let's write a song about like a high school reunion and
Perfect.
how touchy and everybody can be and like nosy and
Oh yeah.
like, all right, let's try and dive
And
into that.
they're all coming in to impress you, right?
Yeah.
So I love
And
that.
so
I love that
it's
line.
just kind of about
You
being,
rolled in the Cadillac
Yeah.
and dressed like Johnny Cash, all the Man in Black. I love those lines, and it says a lot about what that first 10 years. Now I've been out of high school now for 45 years, and I've worked on lots of class reunions, and we come from a real small school, so
Sure.
only not a lot of people. But that first 10 to 20 years, people are really trying to impress each other.
Oh, yeah.
At this point, I promise you, nobody cares.
Yeah, nobody cares. I mean,
So,
I'm at 15 years,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm pretty.
So-
That song was fun to do.
yeah.
If I could do it over again, I'd probably maybe change some of the production choices. But again, not a ton of creative control back then with some of these studios because
Sure.
they just kind of do their thing.
Right.
I mean-
right.
Creative control just means more money.
Yeah. Well, so fast forward, several years. Now we're in 2024. You've got some new singles out, Yellowstone, and you just recently released Wild West.
Yeah.
Both really good songs. Both kind of inspired by the series, actually, Yellowstone.
Yeah.
And 1883 and 1923. I don't think you've written a song for 1923 yet. but-
I've got it in the
You're
bag.
working on
I've been working on that. But
Cool.
yeah, so I mean, I moved home And I met this producer, Trevor Price, which is the studio we're in right now. And
Okay.
he's done everything since. I was like his first country artist he worked with. So we've learned a lot as we've gone. We've done quite a few projects. We've done a couple EPs. The Born Here, Die Here EP, which has Yellowstone on it.
Mhm.
We've done the Third Degree EP, which has some songs I really enjoy. But production-wise, we're in a space that I really like now. He knows what I like. We know where we're at. And so we're actually working on a full album right now.
Cool.
12 songs. We've got 5 already done, Wild West being one of those. And Wild West was, inspired by that 1883 series, the Yellowstone spinoff. Not necessarily just about the series, but just kind of my thoughts about, the Wild West times and like
Sure.
how anybody made it out alive. Just kind of baffling to me.
Yeah.
And so the song just kind of went from there. And then,
Yeah, we come from long line of pioneer stock ourselves, right? So actually, we live in Idaho, but my great grandfather actually was the road engineer of City Creek here,
oh, okay.
and then got sent down by Brigham Young and was the road engineer between Cedar City and St. George. So we have some deep pioneer roots in history.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's kind of cool to think back on those terms. And I've always said I'm an Idaho farm boy that wanted to be a cowboy, and so I worked hard at being a cowboy for a lot of years. I'm an old rodeo cowboy, team roper, horse trainer. I've done
Oh,
all
wow.
those things, and so that stuff speaks to me. As well as I mentioned before we started that I have some friends who've worked on the series Yellowstone.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And 1883 and 1923. So that's kind of cool to, when I turn on the TV, I watch for my friends, and they've worked in the movie industry for a lot of years. So that's kind of cool. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about some of the other songs. We talked prior to starting about some of the songs. I asked you some questions about. One of the songs you did was about addiction and addiction recovery.
Yeah. So I've got a song called "Thankful for Tomorrow." It's available now as a single, but it will be on the album that I've mentioned. Inspired by my father, had addiction issues most of my life. It got really bad in the time that I was living in Tennessee, and then when I moved home. But like with any addiction, the person with the problem needs to make the choice to be better. Like
Right.
Nobody can help them make that choice. So he finally made that choice. I mean, I think we're coming up on 6 years ago now. And then I've got a friend who's also struggled with addiction, and he was talking to me one day, like it'd be cool to create a song about that somehow. I've got a title, "Thankful for Tomorrows" is what he had said. I'm like, that's really cool. I think I would ditch the S on the end and just do "Thankful for Tomorrow."
Really, because it's about one day at a time.
Right. That was
Yeah.
kind of my thought process with, being around my father. So kind of taking a little bit of my friend's story and his title. I guess we can get into that. Like in the chorus I mentioned, I'm heading over to a bridge, I'm looking over the ledge, and I'm just going to jump off and sink. That was kind of my friend's point of view in his journey, is he was going to jump off an overpass here in Utah. But
Wow.
he was up there for a while, long enough that, the police had arrived, and the cops ended up grabbing him right before he could let go. And so I tried to put that into there a little bit. Everything else is kind of more inspired by my father and just kind of watching him and just the struggle and then getting through to the other side, and just kind of that daily reminder to
Yeah.
be thankful for tomorrow,
Yeah.
the next day.
Well, it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot or even often enough, is addiction.
Right.
And how many artists and successful artists were absolute tortured souls with addiction issues that ended up losing their lives,
Okay.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the songwriting process.
Sure.
You write the majority of your music you have written yourself. You've had some collaboration, obviously, with a few of the songs. Do you prefer to collaborate, or do you like to do it on your own?
I think I like to do it on my own. I mean, I did a lot of co-writes when I was in Nashville, when it was a little more easy. I mean, I know we could just do Zoom stuff or whatever, but for the most part, I just like to write on my own. I feel like I'm pretty good at it. I mean, I listen to music. I'm a music savant. I listen to all kinds of music, all kinds of genres. So I know what I like. So when I write a song, if I don't like it, then it obviously goes away, or I need to fix it or rewrite it. But I do have a few that I've co-written with some friends out here, like a few that I'm working on that'll be on my project that I'm doing, this new album. I think we've mentioned Allison Hodgson, good friend of mine that sings on a lot of my songs, I Will Survive and Yellowstone and Wild West and Thankful for Tomorrow. She's typically doing the background in it. She was in my band for a while.
Okay.
She moved to Texas. But we've written a few songs together, and a couple of them will be on this project. One of them is a duet. It's called Quitter. That we actually also co-wrote with Trevor Price, who owns the studio that we're sitting in, my producer. So, but for the most part, a lot of my stuff is written by my hand and my hand alone.
Okay. So of the your musical catalog that you've written, do you have a favorite?
I think to this point, it would probably be Yellowstone that I'm most proud of. I mean, that's the song that has done well for me, and it's on contract with Crucial Media. You know, they do TV and film pitching, 3-year contracts, so that could end up in TV or film at some point. But I just feel like, as far as the production goes and the lyrics, and people seem to enjoy that. I mean, it's inspired by the show Yellowstone, but there's a lot of elements there that I feel like could be used with everyday life or anything, you know, just about fighting for your family and your rights. And
it's got a great message.
Yeah, I think it's just fun, and it's fun to play live. Like, it's a building song where it's kind of this slow build, and then we hit the chorus and it's intense. So that's probably my favorite to this point. But, you know, Thankful for Tomorrow has a special place for me that I've recently done, you know, based on the addiction with my father and all that. So I'm pretty proud of that one. But all these new songs that I'm putting out here, hopefully within the next year, you know, we've got 5 done. We're going to do 12.
Okay.
And 11 of them I've written myself. One will be a cover song. But yeah.
Well, speaking of covers, what would be your favorite cover? Obviously, you got a love of music.
I mean, I love 80s music. That's kind of my thing, and that we're going to have a lot of 80s elements to this project we're doing. Mainly big drums, like big production of the drums, but a little bit of synthesizer in there. I mean, Ronnie Millsap is probably my favorite. If I just had to pick somebody, I love Waylon Jennings as well. Tanya Tucker, the Judds, I mean, Randy Travis, pretty much anything coming out of the 80s. Huey Lewis.
Speaking of Randy, and not 80s, but have you heard his new song, his new single?
Yeah, they used AI to get it done. It's really cool. I mean, if he's all for it and he's okay with it, I don't see any problem with it. I mean, if he signed
I saw the
off on
video of him showing that to Clay Walker, and Clay was just like, what?
I saw the whole little, I think it was a 60 Minutes piece or something, but yeah, I saw the whole little, how they put it together. It was, I can't think of his name, but a kid that was on American Idol actually sang the song, and then they just overdubbed it with Randy's voice through AI. Really cool. But yeah.
We love Randy. Never did get to see Randy live. Seen a lot of live music, but not Randy Travis. But back to your heroes, right? The 80s music.
Yeah, I mean, just that 80s sound is my favorite. I mean, 70s and 90s is great too, and there's certainly some newer stuff that I enjoy as well, but there's just something about that era. I mean, the music, the movies, I love all the movies from the 80s. It's just kind of a nostalgic feeling, and I wasn't even alive. That's the interesting hard part to explain. I was born in 1990, but just being around, my family, and that's the type of music they always played. So,
well, I think we all have a tendency to lean towards that, right?
Sure.
We grew up in the 70s as like your parents, and so we have a love for classic rock and the 70s sound. But the music from the 70s, honestly, that the classic rock that we call classic rock, Eagles, CCR,
it was just rock at the time,
is actually more country than today's country is, I think.
Yeah, for the most part, as far as radio goes, that'd be a fair statement for sure. Like Marshall Tucker and Charlie Daniels, and Leonard Skinner. And
We're
a lot
actually
of the
going to
Eagles.
see Marshall Tucker's coming to Fort Hall, Idaho
Oh, okay.
in September. We're
That'll
going to
be
see
awesome.
him.
Yeah, we play "Can't You See" in my band's set list all the time.
Oh yeah,
That's always
yeah.
fun to
That's a
play.
great song. Desert Skies is one of my favorites, and I actually sang that to every one of my kids, and I've sang it to all my grandkids as they were little, and learning the guitar again in my 60s. I'm learning that song so I can
Sure.
play it to them, and my voice doesn't sound as good as it used to, and maybe it never did sound good, but anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's all this great stuff. I mean, this project I'm working on, I'm trying to take all my influences into one. So we've got a lot of songs that kind of sound like the 80s because that's my favorite. So that's going to be shining a little bit more.
Sure.
But there's a few that kind of have more of a modern feel. And then there's definitely like 2 songs, I think, that are very 90s, just like that Joe Diffie, early Tim McGraw, Kenny Chesney, Toby Keith,
Okay.
Alan Jackson.
Yeah.
That kind of a vibe. There's 2 songs that kind of have that vibe. A lot of the 80s. There's a couple that are kind of more 70s influenced. And there's actually 2, one of which being a duet with Allison, my friend that we've mentioned that I co-wrote. It's called Quitter, and that kind of has more of the almost 50s, 60s vibe.
Okay.
It's a duet, so it's kind of more that Johnny Cash, June Carter feel.
Okay.
With a modern production, of course.
Sure.
But just that kind of feel to it. And then the song that I just put out, Wild West, that kind of has an older, almost 60s vibe to it because, my great friend Parker Daniel plays guitar on all my stuff. He's also a producer out in Nashville. Neon Cactus Studios is his place. He's been on tour with Alan Jackson, and Zach Brown, and Ashland Kraft, and William Michael Morgan. I think he's with Graylin James right now, who's
Okay.
kind of on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
So, very talented guy, and I'm happy that he always plays on my stuff. But he played nylon string in Wild West, and so that
Okay.
always gives it this like southwestern, almost Mexican,
Yeah.
musical
Very
vibe.
different vibe, different sound.
and it's really cool. And that was
Right.
the first time that we put that in a song. And it when I listened to the song Wild West, available everywhere now, you can go listen. It just kind of has that old school feel to it, and I
Right.
really like that. So we'll probably dive into a little bit more of that with some of these other songs. But yeah, I'm just trying to capture all kinds of different eras and smush it into one. There's one
Right.
song with Allison on there as well that is just a straight blues song. Like, I'm not even going to say, hey, this is a country song. The only country in it is probably my voice. Like, the whole production of it is a blues song.
That's cool.
And it's called A Victim to Allison. Just kind of a fun song that we wrote about, because she's always kind of bounced from guy to guy because she's moving so often. She grew up in California, then she came to Utah, then she went to college in northern Utah at Logan, Utah State. And then she moved to California last summer for a job. Now she's in Texas. So it's hard for her to maintain a relationship
Right.
because she's always kind of on the move. And so we just kind of twisted it a little bit to like, all these guys are just another victim to Allison. And
Well,
that could be for anybody, but
sure.
we just happen to use her name.
Sure.
Well,
that's cool.
It's
That's-
a straight blues song.
That's something cool to add to the album.
Yes, sir.
Well, we've talked a lot about the songwriting process and the songs and the music. Kind of laid out what you got going on with the album and the future plans. We talked a little bit about where you're playing, how many shows you're doing a year, and kind of what your plan is there, what you've
Sure.
got on the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, every year's different. As a musician, I'm just constantly emailing venues and just trying to get shows. I mean, I don't have a manager or anything. I do it all myself. I've done everything myself to this point. Some people have helped me along the way, but it's pretty much all by my hand. Like,
Sure.
this doesn't go without me. I'm my biggest supporter.
Well,
which I have to be.
funny story. I got to bring this in because
Sure.
we mentioned Tanya Tucker. We just saw her in Immigrant, Montana at the Old Saloon, but she made a comment which I loved, and this kind of ties in with what you're talking about. But she said, if you ever find a turtle on a stump, he didn't get there by himself. So obviously you've got to
Right.
be the driving factor here, but there are a lot of
Sure.
people, somebody put you on that stump, right? And,
Sure.
and so whether it's your parents, family and friends, but you actually had to put the work in, but we didn't get there by ourselves. No matter what we did.
No, I mean, nobody gets anywhere without a little bit of help. There's a couple songs that I'm doing on my upcoming project, which I'm calling Independent Outlaw, by the way. Because that's just kind of how I felt. I'm a non-religious man in Utah, which is kind of a heavily religious state. And I sing country music. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs. I don't party. Like, I'm kind of the oddball as far as a country singer, I think. But just growing up, I've always kind of felt like on the outside a little bit. I'm independent in life, independent as far as music goes. Like, I have no help, I have no label. And so an outlaw just, to me, is just someone on the outside of the norm. And so Independent Outlaw, it's just a song that I've crafted and I felt like shapes this album quite well for me. And then there's another song on there that is similar in a tone, but it's called The Lone Wolf.
Okay.
And sometimes I just feel like the lone wolf. Like, there's a line in the song, like, I'm just the lone wolf. You know, nobody's going to make this go but me. I've got some close supporters, but there's a ton more who would love to watch me bleed.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of a few lines from the song.
Yeah.
That we're working
there's
on.
There's a lot of truth to that, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to see you succeed except for the ones that don't.
Sure,
and there's
sure.
plenty of those. Just real quick touch on where you're playing and where you're going to be playing.
Yeah, I mean, last year we did like 27 shows. A lot of those were full band. I'm getting a little more greedy with the full band just because you got to feed a lot of mouths. And so if it's not paying well, I'm not going to do the full band. But I'll be happy to do acoustic by myself or even a duo or trio show. So we've been playing a lot at the Ridge, which is in Draper, Suncrest. Tara Main is the owner. She's awesome. She's been booking me there like 4 or 5 times a month, either on a Sunday for brunch or a Thursday night for dinner. She also owns Wingnuts in Draper, so we'll play there sometimes. We did just play Deer Valley up in Park City last week, Hidden Valley Country Club. A lot of like private shows we'll do like that, or some of these smaller shows right now.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have a whole lot of full band stuff at the moment. I mean, we've got a couple private gigs coming up with the full band, but maybe people can follow my social media.
Yeah.
Keep up with all that. I try to post all that stuff as much as I can.
Right.
In between me posting all the goofy promotional videos that we kind of have to do in today's world.
Sure. Well, and I think that's key. Obviously, that's how we're promoting Musical Miles podcast is through social media and on YouTube but our goal is to help artists, somebody like yourself who's trying to get your message out there and let people know, because I think you'll have a lot of I love your music. I love your sound, and we're excited for you in the future you got going on.
Yeah,
before we spin out of here today, I know you got stuff going on, but I'd like you to take a minute and play us a song real quick. Give us a little sampling of what you do, and then we'll close her out.
Okay, sounds great. Let me grab the guitar.
All
right, Yellowstone. Let's play that.
Okay.
Wake up before the rooster crows, saddle up for the day. Try to make a living off the land the old-fashioned way. I do it like my daddy did it and his daddy done before. 'Cause it runs deep in this blood, 'cause at the stage 4, our next of kin, our next in line, learning the ways of life. Respect the land, respect fellow man, till they try to take your rights. We were born here, die here, working our fingers to the bone. Try to take it, we won't be overthrown. We'll fight for this land. Yellowstone. Take our horses down to drink, right along the bank. And if someone's swimming down there, gonna make them sink. When them crows fly in, you know something's out of hand. But if they cross our path, they'll die on this land. We were born here, die here, working our fingers to the bone. Try to take it, we won't be your throne. We'll fight for this land. Yellowstone. Well, now you know just how we like to operate. If something in our pack decides to betray, or they think they need some kind of vacation, I got a one-way ticket for them to take a ride down to the train station. We were born here, die here, working our fingers to the bone. If they try to take it, we won't be overthrown. We'll fight for this land. Yellowstone. Yellowstone. Yellowstone.
That was awesome. Well, listen, this has been a lot of fun. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. I know that you have stuff to do. We put in a few miles today. That's why we call this Musical Miles Podcast.
Awesome.
We're willing to drive a long ways to hear some good music
Sure.
and meet cool people like yourself. And we really enjoyed this today. And we look forward to more interaction with you down the road.
For sure.
Any way we can help out, we're gonna share. Obviously, this will be on our podcast and share it with some of the people that we know and some of the venues up in Idaho. We'd love to have you come to Idaho
Yeah, that
and
would
play
be
some
awesome.
play some shows.
Be happy to.
We just love live music, and we like your sound, and we like what you got going on, and it's been a really cool experience. So thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule.
Thank you.
To
Appreciate it.
come and meet with us and setting up this cool deal. Once again, let's just shout out to the
Trevor Price in the Lounge Studios.
Yeah,
It's an
this
awesome
is a
place.
great place, really cool. Thank you to Miss Shanda for helping with our technical difficulties today. She's behind the scenes producer, taking photos and running things. We've had a little. We're learning through this whole process, right? So we've run into a few technical difficulties again today, but we're learning. So
it ain't music without technical difficulties.
There you
I've
go.
never played a show that went smooth. There's always something.
Always something. Well, thanks again. Look for Skylar Geer on social media, anywhere that music is streamed, Apple, iTunes, Spotify.
Yep, all of it.
All of it, right? And so YouTube, he's got some great videos out, new music coming. So we look forward to it. Thanks again, Skylar.
Yeah, appreciate you.
This is it from Musical Miles Podcast. Adios.